Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Board Game Barbecue podcast. This is your host, Jules, here for today. It's episode 322, proudly brought to you by Advent Games, More Than Meeples, and of course, our illustrious Patreons. I have two very good friends with me here today. I'll start off with Lauren. How you doing, Lauren?
Yeah, really good, mate. I feel like we've not been on a pod together for ages.
It's been a little while since we've been on a pod, period.
Yeah.
So it's not just I've been avoiding you, but no, I'm excited to be back and talking some games. And of course, my mean bro, Joe. How you doing?
Hey, you're the king of the Mean Boy Club, and I'm merely a prince. So I'm honored to be in your presence.
I don't know if I've got the origin story quite straight in my head of how it started.
It doesn't matter. No, it's like the Joker. It's like no one actually knows what the origin story is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we've got actually quite a few games to talk about today, and I might start us off with something that has been talked about recently that I got to play, and that's the Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth. Bloody fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. It's such a clean design. I wasn't expecting a whole lot from it, but just adding an area control element to a game, one of my favorite things. It's so, so good. I was really, really taken by this, and I'm really happy that we've got it in the Board Game Barbecue library and that it's at my house, so I can just keep playing it. I really, really have enjoyed this one. It was spoken about recently, but it's a take on Seven Wonders Duel, where it has the card sort of display where things are stacked on top of each other and you're revealing more options for your opponent as you draft cards in a particular pattern. But it's just good. I highly recommend people try this if they're into two-player games for sure.
This game's going to be under a lot of Christmas trees this year, for sure.
Oh, yeah,
For
good
sure.
call. Yes. Yeah.
Including my own from myself.
Yeah.
Yourself.
Yes, exactly.
It's just so good. I love games that have multiple win conditions that you've got to keep on top of all of them. Otherwise, you can let your opponent get away with it. And yeah, Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth has 3 win conditions, which you're trying to keep track of. There's if you're playing as the free people, you're trying to get the ring to Mount Doom, or the evil team's trying to get the ring race to catch up to Frodo and Sam. You've got control of Middle-earth, so building fortresses in different areas. And then there's sort of collecting the science color, which is the green cards. If you have all the different symbols, you also win the game that way. It's just so good. It's so easy to learn. I did it straight from the rule book. Didn't have any major issues with that. And yeah, I can just see myself playing this again and again. So that's been a real winner for me.
I wonder if it's got the staying power of Seven Wonders Duel, because Seven Wonders Duel, I think, is okay. And it blows my mind how popular that game is.
Yeah, right. I think it does have staying power. This is one that, if I am trying to think of something to play, that I feel like it would pop to my mind because it doesn't overstay its welcome as well. It's not a crazy long game, and it just feels satisfying. I can't describe it any other way. So,
do you feel like, Jules? Do you feel like the different win conditions, are they changeable, or can you do them in different combinations to keep it fresh?
That's a good question. At least in the plays I've done, I felt like you need to be nimble and pivot in the game. If you just go, all right, I'm just going to try and control the map, and that's all I'm going to do this game, it won't quite work, just simply because not all the cards come out for each of the 3 acts that you play through. And those subtle changes of what cards are in play and not in play can make a difference. You need to be able to pivot and adjust, because if you're going one strategy of collecting the rings, which progresses you on the track to either catch the ring bearers or the ring bearers to get to Mount Doom, if your opponent just starts taking some of those, it just limits your potential to actually reach the target on your track. So you've got to have multiple ways in which you're going for the win conditions to, have a shot at that instant win. I can't remember how the game works if no one reaches the win conditions, but yeah, it's just a tight, really, really fun game.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so keen to give it a go. So keen.
Yeah.
Speaking of pivoting, I might jump in now.
Go for it, Joe.
I got to play Pivot, the board game, finally, which is Arcs.
Yes.
Man, I've been wanting to play this for so long. I'm like probably one of, if not the leader games fanboy in Australia. And I went on a board gaming retreat or board gaming weekend away with my local gaming group this past weekend, which was so much fun, and finally got to play Arcs. It is brutal. It's really brutal. And, heaps of people have talked about it on the pod, but it didn't disappoint, and I really enjoyed it. And I'd love to play it some more. Have you played it yet, Jules or Lauren?
I have played it. I want to say it's like 1.5 times.
Okay.
And one of those plays has been online. I need to play it in person. Just the way Def talked about it when he did his mega sizzle on it.
Yeah.
The campaign is something I'm really interested in. But I feel like it's going to scratch an itch that Root does for me. Yep. And so I'm battling between, I love leader games and what they produce. I'd love to own a copy of Arcs, but maybe I don't need to. But who knows?
I think the campaign is probably what makes it really special. But even though I think it differentiates itself from Root really well, it doesn't feel like Root. It's a lot more tactical, and you can get yourself into a lot more trouble than you do with Root. So a bit less forgiving maybe. But if you find yourself, you have a regular gaming group in the future who would like it and would be able to get it to the table, that's when I would buy it and get the campaign going. I think it would be well worth it for that.
Very cool.
I need to try it. I played a really early iteration of it. But the game changed so much over the course of the campaign. So I say that I haven't played it.
Yeah. No, it's
basically.
Yeah, but really enjoyed it.
Very cool. What else have you been playing, Joe?
What else have I been playing? Yeah, so on this board gaming weekend away, we played a bunch of Jackbox games. I brought my Switch, and actually everyone else had brought their Switches too. So it was actually really good because when we were having downtime between board games or like later at night, we were having a couple of drinks, we were able to whip the Jackbox out, and that was really fun. I feel like they should have more. Maybe they do have a lot of appeal. Maybe lots of people play them and I just don't know. But I feel like it's just such a great way to sit down and have fun. And you just laugh with your friends. We got to play Jackbox 9, one of the newer ones, which I haven't played yet before. And I got to play a new game that I hadn't played before called Dictionarium, which is like you're essentially creating – the game gives you made-up words and you have to create meanings for them or definitions for them.
Yes.
As if they were going to go into a dictionary. And we had a really good one where the word was Korf, K-O-R-F.
Okay.
I thought my definition was great, which was coughing in Klingon. Anyway, someone else put coughing it as a Viking, and that then you then had to create like the next person, which was Mike, had to create a synonym for it. And the synonym he came up with was Thor throat, which was just such a. And so then for the rest of the weekend, we've been talking about Thor throats. Anyway, it was just really good. Yeah, just had a great time.
Never misses, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's got its time and place, but yeah, it's always a nice way to end an evening, I find. Yeah. Lauren, what have you been up to?
I've been playing a lot of new arrivals recently. So I recently had String Railway and my favorite things arrive. String Railway, what a delight. What a delight. Did you end up backing that campaign, Joe?
No, I didn't, but it looks so good on the table. The photos you've sent through, it just looks so great.
It's such a delight. I think you both would actually quite like it because it's really mean.
Well, we're simple boys. What can we say?
That's it.
I'm sorry that I'm so predictable.
So on your turn, you draw a card and place a station and then place one of your pieces of string. That's your turn. Your piece of string has to start on a station and end on a station, and it always has to originate from a station you've already been to. So your starting station and then branching out. Some of the stations will limit how many players can go on them, but as games progress, you can kind of trace your string around so it overlaps and intersects a bunch of stations already placed on the way. You do, however, lose points for going over other people's strings. So you're trying to pivot around people to get to stations to score points, but not go over too many pieces of string, but also maybe put stations in a way that block where other people can go. So James on his turn just did the most, I'm going to beat this out, move. It was just anyway, I returned in favor. I placed a station that only one person could go on, literally just right next to his station, and just took my longest piece of string and went right there so he couldn't do anything with that color. Because in the 2-player game, you both play as 2 colors.
That's so
It
good.
is a lot of fun, and it's very imperfect. So for people who like games that are very measured and very particular and very precise, it's not going to be for you. As you lay the string, you knock and shuffle a bunch of things and you move, and does that string touch that station? Yeah, probably. It's definitely, if you're going to be particular about those things, not the game for you, but I found it very fun and very silly and very, very interactive, but over in 10 minutes. Loved it a lot.
It would remind me of those puzzles where you have to like draw a line between 2 dots without crossing any of the lines over, but you're trying to find the way that you weave in and out of them without crossing those lines.
Yeah. It's like that. It's like that.
It's funny. It doesn't look mean on the table. It looks like quite cutesy, I guess. So I'm surprised to hear it's a mean game, and it makes me want to play it even more.
It's one of those things where I think you could play it either way, right? And I think Dan has spoken about this before, that games that are very bitey that she's played with her group and everyone was really gentle with it. And you could totally be very gentle of everyone just kind of going about their thing and having a nice time, making little pieces of string. But it's like, nope, I'm going to loop this way, because that way every time you cross from your station, you now have to minus 2 points because it's going through my string twice. I think that's the way I want to play it, at least.
Awesome. Love that.
I also got to play another game a little while back, and I didn't get the chance to speak about it yet, but it's a card battling game called Kira Eye the Jewel. Have either of you heard of it?
No.
I've heard of it.
It comes in like a little
sack type
satchel
thing. Yeah.
that you kind of can wear around your neck. I don't know why you do that, but I guess you could. It's a choice. And it does a lot with very few cards. It's kind of, I think, an 18 card design, something like that. And you have your 2 swordsmen, samurais, and there's one card that represents your distance from one another. And it's a lot like a few other battling systems where you have 2 battlers kind of tossing back and forth along a plane, trying to land attacks at specific times. So making sure I hit this attack that only lands when you're 2 spaces away. So predicting that you're going to be 2 spaces away when I do that, because you're both going to choose your cards and then play them simultaneously, which are going to be a combination of moving and attacking. So it's kind of, I want to move forward because I'm anticipating that you're going to stay there because you want to use this other attack. And the reason you can kind of work that out is you both have very, very similar cards. And as they get revealed, you know what cards they basically have to choose from and what's left. And they kind of keep getting cycled because there's not that many cards in the game. And so it's all about anticipating what they're going to do. There's also cards that let you change your stance, because different attacks, you can only do damage in different stances. And you're just trying to land 2 hits on your opponent. It was really cool. I played it with Adrian. Very quick. But there's a lot of really interesting battling systems in games that I feel like people don't explore heaps. So certainly in the board game circles I run in, don't get talked about a lot. So it's very similar, or it's a much more kind of refined, pared down version of other battling systems in board games like the Exceed fighting system or Sakura Arms, those kinds of games. Have either of you played those kinds of fighting duel combat games?
No.
It's a kind of genre of game that see talked about a lot, but that kind of simulate Tekken, that kind of fighting style game of moving back and forth, tossing and throwing on kind of a single plane and just landing attacks, landing combos, and they're all about obviously defeating your enemy, but just trying to predict what your opponent is going to do.
I don't know if this is on the correct wavelength, but I'm thinking of games like Unmatched. I mean, it's not a single plane, but you sort of know, once you play it a bunch, you know the capabilities of the opponent, and you've got to try and predict what they are going to use, what they've been holding. But I don't know. I haven't played the games specifically using those systems.
It kind of reminds me of, stick with me. There's this like mini game in Final Fantasy VII where you are sparring with another kind of person, and if they do a left hook, for example, you want to uppercut because that's the counter, because you'll get through their kind of defense in that way. It's almost like a rock, paper, scissors kind of triangle. Is that kind of how the Exceed system works?
Yeah, the Exceed system is much more involved than these other ones. You've got special abilities, you've got a whole bunch of different fighters that you can throw in, all sorts of different funky things. But it's definitely like that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, no, I really like them. I definitely want to give more of these kinds of games a try, whether it's the auto battlers, like challenges.
That's the
Like
one.
challenges, and
Wizard's
even
Cup?
Wizard's Cup as
Yeah,
well.
Wizard's
Which
Cup.
I think you got recently, Joe.
Yeah, I want to try Wizard's Cup. I'm keen
Yeah,
for
still
it.
haven't played it. I'm still keen to get it to get to the table.
Yeah, I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on that one because I got the original Japanese, so mine's a bit janky. It's got the sleeves, and then I've just written the English translation and stuffed it in the sleeve. But those kinds of games
Cute.
that are all about anticipating what your opponent do, I just think are so cool.
Yeah, very cool. One of the things I wanted to talk about was something that Lauren taught me the Sydney game day, which was Pixies. I really loved it. And the good news is it's available in Australia now. Well, at least it should be very soon. Pandasaurus are localizing it here in Australia. So it'll be something that people can go to the local store and just ask to get it in. But Pixies was so much fun, just to push your luck in terms of set collection, getting greedy about trying to get as many points as you possibly can before, someone gets stuck and they can't play cards anymore. It's just so much fun. It's a very simple drafting game where you put out 3 cards at a time and each player takes turns going first. And so one person will have whatever they get left over with. But as you start to collect cards, you start to have limitations about where they can go. And as it's been talked about on the podcast before, you're putting it out in a 3x3 grid, cards numbered 1 through 9. And you feel this tension sometimes between, I need that card, but if I take that, my opponent's going to get stuck with this, and that might end the game, or it comes very close. And so you have this push and pull of, I want to take the card I need, but I also kind of want the game to go an extra round because I really need to cover up this negative point that is sitting there with 6 minus points or whatever the case may be. So it's just a fun one. For me, it's a game that fits into this feeling of, let's go again and again and again. And it's just Moorish. I really, really was charmed by Pixies. And I've got a copy to add to the Board Game Barbecue library now, which is fantastic. So
Good.
you should be able to try that out if you're in Sydney.
Moorish is definitely the word for that game, right? And I think, was it
yes.
Maggie that talked about it a little while ago when she was a guest on the pod?
Yep.
What I love about it as well is I think there were a few times where I had to take something because I didn't want you to have it.
Yes.
Right? But then the thought was, well, do I have to deny you, or can I make someone else deny you?
Make it someone else's problem.
Let Pete deny you so I can take this thing and he's going to have to stop you from getting that. So I really liked that part of it as well.
Yeah, love that. Love making it someone else's problem.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but Pixies, great fun. Highly recommend it. It's a very small box game. The art is also super cute. It's photography done with these sort of interesting creatures that someone's made using trash in nature settings. It's just
cool.
really, really charming. Really, really like it. So if you see it in your local game store, just pick it up. It's a tiny, small, fun card game.
Yeah, cool. I've also been playing. I've on this board game retreat. I played Yokai Septet, another card game. Pretty sure it's been talked about on the pod.
Yeah, I think it has.
Maybe a couple of times, but I hadn't played it before, and it's a trick taker, which a hit or miss for me. But loved it. I thought it was really good, and I really liked that twist on the trick taking element of it, where it's you've got these special cards, the number 7 cards that you're trying to win in the tricks, and if you win them in the tricks, they are added to your scoring pile. But then a way to lose is to collect 7 tricks, and so I liked there were different strategies where you could force your opponents to lose by winning 7 tricks. And then the way you score for that is that in all of the hands, including your opponents, all of the level 7 yokai you score. And so the first to 7 points wins. It's yokai septet, so it's 7s on 7s on 7s. And it's a team game. So I played with the person across from me, and the other 2 opponents were playing together as well. Really loved it. It was so much fun.
We need more 2v2 games in general.
Agreed.
It's such a fun format, especially in the context of trick takers, which are often about, covertly providing information based on the cards you play. So how are you not getting, when I played this, how did you not know? Da, da, da.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Also, from a component point of view, there's something about the 7s being shiny, like in Nana.
Yes.
Just having the shiny on one card makes it feel so dang special and kind of takes me back to getting excited about shiny Pokemon cards when I was little. Just this kind of a childhood wonder that you can't, hold it up to the light and make it shimmer. It's so good.
It's always nice, like when you pick up your hand after it's been shuffled in your Septet and you like fan the cards out, and you're like, oh, there's 3 shiny cards in here. It was great. It was good fun. Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm so sad that it's not easy to get. And so I'm going to have to try and kill someone to get that game, I think.
I haven't played it yet, but so many people have talked about it. I do want to try it.
Yeah, I got the Kickstarter copy, and it's in the loveliest little box. It's probably the same size as Pixies.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Definitely a great one to pick up. I guess on the total opposite end of that spectrum, though, I got to play a game that I think you can still late pledge on Kickstarter, which is Speakeasy. Big Lacerda campaign, his latest addition to his catalogue, which is about making alcohol and delivering it in the Prohibition era. And gentlemen, if you were to venture a guess, how many times do you think I delivered and sold alcohol in that game?
0.
Yeah, big fat bubkus. 0. Astonishingly, I did not win. It was quite good. I was quite charmed by it. I definitely don't love all of his games. I bounce pretty hard off the heavier ones because I just find them very overwrought and convoluted without it really adding much to the games. But
sure, yeah.
I know that that's not an opinion that everyone shares. I do, however, like his more lighter fare. So I really like Vinyos. I've enjoyed Escape Plan. And for me, Speakeasy falls in the same level as those. I think it's definitely more welcoming relative to other games.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, cool.
There's also a cool kind of componentry bit. There's lovely little bits. You can put trucks and put the little barrels on the back of the trucks as you drive them around and deliver. And there is a map that you don't directly, challenge other people, but every round mobsters come out and there are these mob wars. And so everything you build up can be absolutely torn down by the mob.
Oh, okay.
Is that like a AI almost?
It's really simple. It's just a card that flips over for a mob boss, and it's, this is his strength, and each of your buildings has to kind of beat that.
So it's kind of like in Hadrian's Wall where you get attacked from somewhere.
Yeah, pretty similar.
Yeah.
And so you have little mobsters that you can add, and you can hire other mob bosses and all these things you can do to try stave off those attacks. And in the last round of that game, all I was doing, I thought, I don't even think this is going to get me the most points, but I'll be damned if I end this game with my buildings being torn down, that I haven't, there's no alcohol being sold out of these covert places. They're all fronts. It's a giant pyramid scheme, but I'm not allowing these to be torn down. So I did like it. It was kind of like Vinyos, that the main thrust of how you take actions is very simple. There's just a handful of worker placement spots. It didn't have too much of what I don't like in Lacerda games, which is all these extra random mini games tucked off to the side everywhere. There was one, which is these ports where you kind of have to take over these ships, but for the most part, kind of relatively interwoven. It does have what the Gallerist has, which is that you get lots of extra actions in your turn.
Right, okay.
And while I did not like that in the Gallerist, because it can feel like there's 5 turns in between your turns sometimes in a game that is not at all interactive, in Speakeasy, because the actions themselves are so simple and snappy, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it increases the decision space a little, but ultimately the action is produce alcohol and you pop out some barrels and that's it, you're done.
Mm.
So yeah, I did enjoy Speakeasy. I'm on the fence about backing it. I'll probably wait until retail. But certainly if you like Lacerda and if you like his light affair, then this is a slam dunk for those people.
Okay, very cool.
I, being probably one, well, aside from Def, I'm also a very big Lacerda fan. Maybe it's L's, Leader Games, Lacerda.
Lauren, it's fine.
Yeah, Lauren. Yeah. That's why I hate Jules. No.
Well, I've got an L in my name.
That's true. But it makes you mid because it's in the middle.
I'll take mid.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I've backed it and can't wait to play it. The downside of Lacerda games is not everyone's cup of tea, and getting it to the table can be hard. But I think I've played quite a bit because I've had a dedicated group that only plays Lacerda games, so it's been really nice.
Yeah, right.
And can't wait to play Speakeasy. And it sounds great. It sounds really good.
It's good. It's really good.
Very
and
cool.
And the components look lovely. The production, Ian et al. Smashes it out
always
of the park.
Knocks it out of the park. Very good. Well, I might talk about my sizzling game because it's pretty light, but I've had so much fun playing it. I just wanted to talk about it. And that's Nekojima. So this is a dexterity game. That's really all there is to it. And it just has such an amazing table presence if you're good at playing it. So in Nekojima, it's based off, I guess, this island, Japanese island where there's lots of cats that live there. And there's all these electricity wires running everywhere. And all you're doing is trying to stack these poles, which have ropes attached between two ends, and put it in places which are randomly dictated when you play the game. So what will happen is you roll 2 dice and it will bring up a various number of results. Either it will give you a quadrant on this circular board in which you have to place the 2 ends of the pole that you have to choose, or you'll have one die face that lets you choose a quadrant, or you have one that has an opponent choose one of the quadrants. And so once you've done that, you reach into a bag and you'll pull out a colored cube, and that's the colored wire that you have to put down. There are also black cubes in the bag that if you pull that out, that denotes someone needs to place a cat. And you actually give it to an opponent for when it gets to their next turn. Once they've placed their electricity wire down, they then have to put a cat on the same color that they placed. Doesn't have to be the same wire they just placed, but at least the same color somewhere on the board. And this board is, as I said, a circle, but it's not very large. And so you're forced to build upward. So this is a very Jenga style game where you're trying to stack all these, telephone poles on top of each other. But the couple of rules are none of the wires can touch each other and nothing can go beyond the boundaries of that circular board. So you can't have sort of telephone wires looping round the outside to bypass other stuff. It has to all be contained within that circle. And basically you keep playing till someone knocks over the tower. That's really all there is to it. But it just looks so spectacular once people have stacked up multiple levels of these wires. And there's these really fun moments where you're like, how am I going to put this down? It's not possible. And you just manage to find the right place to rest one end on and then a little gap to fit the other end of the pole down. It's just really, really fun, super approachable for all ages. And it's just really, really charming. Beautiful artwork on the box. This is just a dexterity game that is so easy to bring to the table for all ages. So Nekojima, it's just really, really simple, good fun.
In this one, Jules, because I know there are some dexterity games that it can be a bit of an issue. Well, what if you just knock over a tiny little bit of it? Do you keep going, or is once anything's knocked over?
Once anything's knocked over, it's game done. So this is definitely one of those don't bump the table games.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it's so quick and you just go again. It's really, really good. And I think one of the things I enjoy as well is when you're randomly picking a cube from the bag and you pull out a color, they've kind of designed the game where I think it's white, blue, and I can't remember the other colored wire. It was red, maybe? I can't quite remember. But they have different lengths. They're not all the same. And the poles are also different heights. So you've got a bunch of choices about which you want to choose, dictated by the color you pulled. But at least the length of the rope is pretty similar on all those colors. And so sometimes you pull a really long rope later in the game. You're like, how do I put this down so it's not touching anything? The rope is so long, and it's just stressful like Jenga, but that's good fun. But yeah, amazing table presence. If you look it up on BGG, some really, really fun photos. This was a game that only had a very small print run in, I can't remember. Maybe it was Japan. I don't know where it was originally produced, but now it's in English and more widely available. So yeah, this is a good one to pick up for the family. Bit of a tip for Christmas if you got some kids.
Actually, yeah, it would be quite a good family game. I mean, kids would probably be pretty good at it. I played it at PAX with a few of the crew and was extremely bad at it, as I am with most dexterity games. Amazingly, I saw a group of people playing it recently. I can't remember where they only had like one set of poles left. Like they'd built it up really high.
Wow.
I was like, I don't know how my hands are like shaking just thinking about it. But yeah, it's such a fun game. It's very good.
It looks so good. It got played it got demoed at the Sydney Game Day.
Yeah.
And so I got to see it on the table a lot, and I am desperate to try it because I also am always on the hunt for games that work in therapy, and it feels like this would always fit the bill. I've played a lot of Rhino Hero Super Battle.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually might be my most played game of 2024. Astonishing thing. I think I got like 50, 60 plays of it in.
Yeah.
But it's always kids will knock on thing. It's fine. It's not. Just let me put it again. Let me do it. But I think that this would be great for that as well. Also,
100%.
Can't estimate how droopy a piece of rope is going to be. You think, this could fit in there. That'll work.
Yeah.
It hangs all the way down. Yeah.
Yep. No, there's been a couple of times I've played it where I felt like I'm in Mission Impossible, just threading through the laser beams where I'm passing a piece through because it would work really well. Really, really fun.
Wasn't there another game that was trying to simulate that?
Yes, and I can't remember the name of it. I know I think Connor had backed it. It's got these pieces of string in like a box type structure, and you're trying to not hit the laser beams.
They have like a trap trigger
yes.
if you touch them.
Yes.
Someone brought it to the board game weekend. We didn't actually end up playing it. What's it called?
Yeah, I can't remember the name, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Tiny Laser Heist.
That's it. Yes, Tiny Laser Heist. Yeah, that looks fun too. But yeah, that's it for Nekojima from me. Joe, how about you go next? Because Lauren's one I had opinions on, so I'll save that for last.
Oh, you had opinions
I had opinions,
okay.
Joe.
Controversy. I assume Perspectives isn't controversial for either of you. Have either of you played it?
No, I haven't, and I'd like to try it.
It's so good. Oh my God. This is going to be like a sizzling sizzle. So we've got it in the Melbourne Board Game Library, and it's been staring at me for ages. And I saw a bunch of people playing it at the recent Melbourne Game Day, and I was like, this isn't what I expected it to be. It's like an investigation deduction type game, I guess kind of in the same vein as like the Sherlock Holmes consulting detective games, but a bit less involved than those games. So essentially it's cooperative, it's a deduction / investigation game. You're basically playing as detectives who are trying to crack a case. The first case, like the tutorial case, uses the actual box itself, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I heard that.
Really, really cool. And we got that pretty quickly, that one. So we moved on to the first case in the box. The box itself comes with, I think, the tutorial case and then 3 cases. So there's going to be some slight spoilers. If people don't want to hear anything about it, then it might be best to skip ahead. But I'm not going to actually spoil anything. It's just going to be very, very light. The first case, the way the game works essentially is it gives you like a case briefing in terms of the setup. And so for this one, it was, I think, like an art forgery. Like you have to investigate an art forgery. And what then happens is you deal out, there's 12 cards that are associated with the case. And you deal that out equally amongst the people who are playing. There were 4 of us playing, so it was 3 cards each. And they have different details, and you can't show the other players the cards, and they have different details pertaining to the case. So, for example, purchase orders for this, art forgery. It had things like dimensions for the piece of art, chemical analysis, that sort of thing. And so you're talking amongst each other in terms of, well, this is what I've got. What does it mean? And so it has that discovery process of where you're like, oh, wait, we've both got this card and it means something and we can figure something out from it, which was really satisfying. And the game did a really good job of making you feel very smart, or at least it made us four feel really smart for putting the links together. The way each case is broken up into 4 acts, and so in this game, in each act, you're answering a particular question to do with the case. So, again, a light spoiler for the first case, it was something like, what was the date that this particular piece of art had been swapped out, like the forgery had been swapped in for the real thing, and so you get to work through all the different things that you had to figure that out. When you are pretty sure you've got the case, you got it. You put all your cards face down and you're not allowed to reference them again. You then, at the back of the case details for the first act, for example, is a series of questions you have to answer, and you score points based on all the questions you get right. So I think it was 4 questions per act. And then you go on to the next act, and then you get another 12 cards. Again, you hand them out and you are going through, and it might be you're answering the next question in the kind of the logical chain of the case. Yeah, and I won't kind of go into any more detail from there. It was really fun. It gave me the same vibe, Lauren, as the Sherlock Holmes consulting detective games, but less intense, less sandbox, because you've got the things in front of you. So you're like, well, I know this card is here for a reason. Why do I have this card in front of me? And why is it similar to Mike's card, for example? Whereas I feel like in the consulting detective games, it's such a sandbox. You're looking through everything. So I think it's probably a lot more accessible than like the consulting detective games as a result.
It sounds like it kind of straddles the line well of having the guardrails up enough to steer you in the right direction without it being so much that if you're not on the exact same wavelength as the game, you're getting stuck and you're getting nowhere, which is what I found with Chronicles of Crime.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't scan this specific arbitrary combination of QR codes, and so I'm locked out of finding a possible another location. There's enough there for you that you can kind of get in the right way, but not so much that you get bogged down. Would you say that's a fair?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I think once we got it, we were like, okay, we think we've got it. And there are some things that we uncovered, or like the solutions we came up with or had found. We were just like, I can't believe we found. Like, it's not necessarily super easy. It didn't feel easy, but it just felt like, oh my God, we just found this thing, and that's unlocked the whole case or the whole act, for example, just from this one little detail we've picked up. Yeah, it was just really good. I think it's the type of game that would reward people who are able to kind of pick out details or who are really observant and very analytical, for example. I just loved it. I loved it so much.
This is a Matthew Dunstan design, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. So designed by
Aussie
Matthew
designer.
Dunstan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. It's the type of game that you could, I think once you've played through it, that's it. So once you play through the 4 cases, that's it. But it's so easy to reset up again because it's just the 12 cards in a little folder. So literally you set it back up, put it back in, and you're not you're not breaking anything. So it's a game you could very easily move on after you'd finished with it, or pick it up from someone else who'd already finished it. So really, if you're a fan of deduction, you're a fan of co-op, you would love this game. You should definitely give it a try.
You mentioned, Joe, that it made you guys feel really clever. Any of the solutions, do you think, oh gosh, people aren't going to get that, or that is really hard to get to?
No. I think there would be grades of that potentially. Again, we played the first case, so maybe that's one of the easier cases, so it's hard to know. I can report back once I've played the others. The other thing it does really well is inside this like little manila folder that you're putting the cards into that has all the case details. It has like an explanation of, well, this is the timeline and this is how you would have gotten the timeline from the card. So it's not just like, well, this is the answer, you're stupid for not finding it. It's like, well, this is what you should have noticed on the cards to have come up with these answers, if that makes sense. So in the 4th act, we had got 4 out of 4 of the questions for Act 1, 2, and 3, and we're like, yeah, we are galaxy braining through this game. In the 4th act, we only got 1 of the questions right, and so which was very humbling.
Yes.
Bring you right back down to earth.
But yeah, brought us right back down to earth. But it was like, oh, that's like we had clocked the thing. Like we had clocked what was not making sense, but we just misinterpreted what it meant. And so as a result, we went down this red herring path. So it's like we still had that satisfaction of we found what was not quite right, but
yes.
we just kind of had misinterpreted it.
Yeah.
So it was still satisfying, even though we got it wrong.
Very cool.
I find with some of the exit games that some of the ways it makes you think, I think because you mentioned that it has you use the game box.
Yeah.
These are some of the first exit games that ever came out. So I feel like the statute of limitations on these spoilers has well passed, is that it gets you to use the box and the barcode and things like that. And once I discovered that, I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. And then the more exit games you play, you kind of get on that wavelength, that style of thinking. So I wonder if that would happen as well in perspectives as you go through the case. You just kind of, even if the first one is tricky, once you're in that frame of mind for the style of thinking you need for the game, it might get easier for the people that maybe don't crack it.
Oh, 100%. I think it does a good job of, even within one case, the act 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 gives you a good job of, well, this is what we should be paying attention to in this game. These are the sorts of things
Yeah, right.
These are the ways they're giving us the information in the game, almost like a metacognition kind of thing. So it was, I think it does a good job of teaching you what to look out for. And I think that tutorial does a good job to start with as well, even though it's a completely different material or mechanism they've used. They've used the box rather than the cards. It's teaching you that the details are really important and that the details are there for a reason, not just as like fluff. I guess. So highly recommend. So designed by Dave Neal and Matthew Dunstan. Highly recommend. Check it out.
Might be adding perspectives to my Christmas wish list. I love Matthew's work. He's just big fan. I might round us off. And Jules, I think we'll have some choice words to say to each other. I think we're not on too dissimilar a wavelength.
Okay, let's do this.
It's not a lukewarm sizzle, but it's not a sizzling sizzle, as I feel have been the case for Nekojima and Perspectives. The game I'm going to be talking about is Rats of Wistar, which is designed by Simone Luciani. It is a game about having little rats burrowing and making your own little hideouts and your own little kind of communities, going into abandoned houses, going around collecting stuff, burrowing, making beds, finding people, and scoring points. It is a very tight game, kind of in the same vein as Woodcraft, I would say, in that it is all about action, economy, and efficiency. You only have 15 actions for the whole game. You got 3 little rats that you're going to pop out on a wheel, which is really the crux of the game. So there's kind of an inner wheel with places you put that rat that have some bonuses, and then an outer wheel of main actions, and then that's going to rotate, so the combinations of main action and bonus will be changing throughout the game across the 5 rounds. And the other most interesting part about the action selection is the way that you bolster the strength of those actions, which is by popping out your little worker rats across kind of each of the thirds around that wheel. And you can pop them down for free, but then if you decide that you need to shift them around as the actions change, well, you're going to need to be spending tokens or taking actions to do that, or taking specific bonuses to do that. So it's kind of all about comboing, planning, making sure you have your workers in the right space where they need to be, but also that you're making new bedrooms and building new spaces to get more workers so that the strength of your actions can continue to ramp up, or you're going to have a very miserable time. The board looks lovely. It looks gorgeous. I really like the art a lot. I looked it up and I think this artist has not done many or any other board games. Someone will have to fact check me on that. But I think that's the case because I remember being surprised by that fact, because it is beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Was so incredibly charmed by the aesthetic of it. And I posted it in the Discord, and even Tom was like, what's that game? That looks great. And there's a lot to like about it. I think that the way that you economize your actions and manage the strength of the actions is quite interesting. The worker placement, classic hook of, do I have to take this now? or can I hold out and maybe take it later before someone else takes it because I need to take this other thing instead, is really there because it is so action restricted. You are very interested, I think, in what your opponents are going to do, because if they take the thing that you need to do, by golly, that sucks. Because that can set you off for 3 of the 15 turns of the game, which is really impactful.
Brutal.
Absolutely brutal. So jostling for turn order also becomes very important in the game, but again, that's an action you have to take. Other things that happen on the board, there's this kind of abandoned house that you'll go through and explore, and as you reveal rooms and flip cards, it will give you kind of different objectives to hit. And when you hit those objectives, you'll be able to clear things on your player board, which, you know, gives you upgrades to your actions and makes your actions more efficient, which I think all of the parts of the game are interwoven really nicely together and do work quite seamlessly together. So I think from that perspective, it's a design that has its kind of edges rounded off fairly nicely, I would say. What I'm wondering your opinion about it, Jules, but the one thing I want to mention first is the cards.
Mm-hmm.
So a big part of the game in terms of, you know, meeting these objectives, as I mentioned, and, you know, getting endgame scoring bonuses and bolstering actions and other additional scoring opportunities and some engine building all comes from these cards, which are little inventions that your mice are going to be designing, kind of steampunky almost, for these rats, sorry. The cards are really hard to make, though. If you do get a bit of an engine rolling, though, then you can get some crazy combinations.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the most part, when I look at the cards, I think, oh gosh, that's really good, that's really good, that's really good. The sticky part for me wasn't, oh, are the cards any good? It's how the heck am I going to scramble together the resources to be able to build any of these cards? It is a very kind of interesting Euro that I think if you like Luciana games, is still worth giving a try. I don't think it holds a candle to Grand Austria Hotel, which I think is his best design.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't think in the kind of realm of really tight worker placement games, I don't think it compares to, say, Agricola, which even though there's many more actions in Agricola, relatively speaking, it's that same kind of constraint feeling.
Yeah.
What did you think of it, Jules?
Look, I won't comment on the gameplay because I think you've done that perfectly. For me, if I was to make an analogy, that game is like vanilla ice cream. There's nothing wrong with vanilla, but it's certainly not exciting. It was just very pedestrian. It didn't do anything new or exciting. Not that every game has to do that, but I was so excited by the theme and the art, and it just looked so cool. And then I played it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I've done that once. I don't really need to do it again. There's nothing more I wanted to explore in the game. I saw everything already. So it was a little bit disappointing, but I had fun playing it that one time. But because it doesn't do anything that interesting or new to me, I just had vanilla ice cream and I was like, okay.
I think there's a lot of games that suffer from this more recently. I think there's been such an explosion in board games. This is the type of game that I think of where if it came out 10, 15 years ago, it'd be like a smash hit because there's not as much competition out there and there's not as much to differentiate it from other games potentially, or you'll have a game where it edges it out because the art's better or the mechanics are more interesting or it does this thing better. I guess it sounds like it has the potential to be someone's favorite game, because how much of it, this is a question for the two of you because I haven't played it, how much of your feelings of it being, you know, a light sizzle or just fine is because you play so many games as a result of being on the podcast and as a result of being quite prolific board gamers, and so you have those references for other games that make it feel less special maybe?
That's a good question. It's really hard to unpack that bias, but for me, as I was playing it, I was thinking about other games that I felt were just cleaner or did things better. Like the action economy with the wheel, I think was done much better. And it's a Western game that Mitch loves. I can't remember the name of it, but all the different elements, I thought it's good, but this does it perfectly. Or, you know, the worker placement isn't that interesting, because it's kind of been rehashed over and over again. I think it does have the potential to be someone's favorite, but I would think there's very few people that would fall into that camp. I think it's just, for me, I did see glimpses of, because the game is so tight with its actions and resources, if someone can luck into just the right card they need to get an engine going, and there is no player interaction other than just blocking people on the wheel, it's very hard to catch up to that person. I did see 2 times in the first time I played where someone got the exact right card, or they flipped something over in the house that they perfectly, suited what they were trying to go for. And it was just really, really tricky to catch up from that point. There's just not a lot you can do. So yeah, it's a good game, but I just don't see myself ever wanting to play it again. And it wasn't particularly short. It felt like it took a while to play as well, because it's one of those games where the turns start quite quick, but as you're getting more and more things and more options, your brain starts to grind to a halt with a bit of AP. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
And the game almost begs you to engage in that AP, because if you
yeah.
don't, you're just strictly being inefficient.
Oh yes, yeah, for sure.
I think that's okay if you're prepared to not etch out that last 2 points. And I don't really like in games where it makes you think a lot for the sake of only a few points, because, gosh, that's a bit silly, isn't it? If it's, something that's bombastic and strategic and changes the course of the game, well, that's really cool. But if it's I've done all of this calculation and I'm going to get 11 points instead of 9, then that's just, it doesn't have the same appeal.
Yeah.
I will say, though, I do think that there are people who will really, really, really like this game and would rate it a 9 or a 10. I think all of the parts of the game are so well integrated. I 100% agree, Jules, that the card play and getting or lucking into the right combination dramatically changes the course of the game for some people. And that's why there's a card draft in Agricola, right? Because in these kinds of action tight, worker placement games, it's really important to exercise a bit of that balance. And I think Agricola takes itself a lot more seriously than Rats of Wistar does. But I think even if you had a card draft or starting factions, I feel like there's some things that you could add to this game that would make it a bit more special.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'm a designer. I'm not a designer. What the heck do I know? But maybe more of a game for me. But it also kind of comes back to the point where nowadays, you're right, Joe, there's so many games coming out that it's almost hard to not make a Euro game that's kind of at least a 7 out of 10 average across people.
Yeah.
If you're kind of relying on tried and true and so well, play tested almost mechanisms and aspects of gameplay.
It's almost like it's like an axis of 3, where it's like to stand out, the game needs to have either really interesting different art or theme, or some new mechanic twist needs to be in there to really catch your attention, or it's something to do with the interaction between the players that changes up how you play the game or something like that. So it's like those 3 things. You really need to have one thing at least that makes it stand out to really catch your attention nowadays.
But for some people, and I was speaking about Lacerda games in this context, that some people just enjoy the process of getting better at a game. Because there are some Lacerda games, I think Kanban is a good example of that, where for me, I didn't like it because it didn't feel enough about making cars for a game that is about car making. But that was just a personal preference. I think, though, why a lot of people would like that game is because you can definitely get better at it. And you can eke out more points and you can make the combos more efficient. I think Rats of Wistar is like that as well. And maybe a better example instead of Kanban would be comparisons like Mombasa or Pulsar 2849 or whatever it is, which are all very pointsality. That it's just you play it again and play it again to eke out those extra 2 points. Maybe some people derive a lot of joy from that process.
Yeah, that's very, very fair. I'm not that person.
We're all shaking our heads. That's not us. But if that's for you, it's a really beautiful game. It's a viewer that generally hangs together very well, as long as the people you're playing with are not crazy AP prone.
Yeah.
If you do have AP prone people, I would say just play it at 2. Just play it
Yeah.
at 2.
Yep.
And the solo is probably basically exactly the same. It looks to have, I've not played it solo, but it looks to have just a solo deck of AI cards. So I would play those versions of it if the people in your life are prone to OP. But yeah, generally a good, solid Euro Rats of Wistar.
There we go. All right, so that's all of our sizzles. That's Nekojima, Perspectives, and Rats of Wistar. With all of that, we'll move on to a couple of announcements and some news. You know that game you've been wanting for a long, long time? The one that's been on your wish list for ages? Yeah, that one. The one you've been adding to your cart and taking off again, umming and ahhing about whether you should get it or not? Well, I'm here to push you over the edge and say go to adventgames.com and add that to your cart right now. I bet you that Dean has a great price on it. He's got great customer service, flat rate shipping, and there's so many other goodies to explore on the website. Wonderful categories all organised to pick the exact game that's right for you and the group that you play with. So head over now, don't hesitate, to adventgames.com.au and add that game to your cart now. So the announcement that we'll keep talking about is PlayCon. It is the 11th to the 13th of July next year. So tickets are on sale now. The tickets keep on selling every day. I see more and more ticket notifications come through. It's going to sell out a lot faster than it did this year. So don't wait. Maybe it's a good Christmas present for someone you know. Just saying. But head on over to play-con.com if you are at all interested in coming to a massively fun event. The other one is just a save the date for those that are in Brisbane or would like to travel to Brisbane. We've got the next Brisbane Game Day coming up on the 1st of March in 2025. So put that in your calendars, save the date. Tickets will go on sale a little bit closer to that time, but that's a little bit of forewarning for those of you that are in Brisbane. With that, we'll move on to our question of the pod. Okay, so our question for the pod last time was, what game is on your Christmas wish list? I suppose being Black Friday was just recently come and gone, I was very tempted to buy a lot of Kingdom Death. So tempted. But I was good. I just bought one thing that I wanted, and it was very reasonable. But oh boy, was the temptation strong. I think I got out pretty unscathed, but that's only because I got scathed many times previously. But future Kingdom Death expansions would be absolutely on my wish list. What about you guys?
I was on the last episode, so I think I said the Lord of the Rings.
Oh yes,
Jules
which
was what I wanted.
Maybe under the tree already.
Ooh. I've got Japanese games that have recently come out of the games market that I've been keeping my eye on. So whether I go on Buyee and pick those up kind of remains to be seen. But I did treat myself to the Clans of Caledonia Kickstarter.
Oh, yes.
Really recently. And so I just don't know if I could justify these purchases. There's a few new Trick Takers Classic coming out, but there's also a few economic games, really interactive Japanese economic games. They mess around a lot with train games and really interactive, kind of almost combative economic style games.
Cool.
Which don't make their way across the shores as much because they're a pain in the ass to sleeve and translate and get all the English for. It's really an arts and craft project to get amongst that. But if you've got the patience and the time, so there's a few which I'm not even going to try say the names because I'll butcher them. Maybe I'll pop them in the show notes, but just that I'd really like to try. And one little trick-taking game. So there's a trick-taking game called Trick-Taking in Black and White.
Okay.
Which is a trick-taking game, but there's only 2 suits and each card is both suits with a different number, which is kind of the wrinkle. But there's another one that's come out, which is a cooperative version. And so, pretty keen to get that.
Very good. Well, let's hear what the community has to say. Lauren, do you want to read out some of the Facebook responses?
Sure. So we've got Carl Van Ostrand, who says, I'd love to get Flip 7 for the fam game nights. I've seen that one being pop up
It was
a lot
quite
recently.
popular at Gen Con this year. That's where it had its launch. I haven't played it, but a lot of people were carrying that around.
Jimmy Bose says, the expansions for Raiders of the North Sea and maybe Civolution. I got to play it first to see if it's as good as Connor makes it out to be. Oh, and Rock Hard 1977.
Oh, Rock Hard's good. I have played that. We do have it in the library. I brought that back from Gen Con for the community to play. Super solid worker placement game. So thematic. Lots of fun.
Is that the one where you're taking candy and it's
Yes.
basically all about drugs?
Yes.
Yep, great.
It's so good. I really want to play that again.
Civolution's one of those games where I'm like, I'm not going to look at it, because if I don't look at it, I won't buy it, because I feel like I'm going to buy it. I just don't want to know about it. I'm not going to look at it.
At the moment, for me, that game's World Order.
Yeah.
Yeah, the follow-up from Hegemony. I'm like, no, I don't see that.
Yeah, Civolution looks so good. And all of the Facebook pages for the local game groups are all playing these massive tables of Civolution.
Yes.
I really want to try it. I really, really want to try it. And Brody Leeson says, Earthborn Rangers and Scrap are at the top of my list. So Scrap from local designer, Kenny Michael Otten, and Earthborn Rangers, which has been spoken about also by Connor a lot. And I should have arriving hopefully very soon before Christmas, but we shall see.
Very cool. Joe, do you want to do Instagram?
Sure. So from Instagram, Calax_Hatterack said, top of the list is probably the Black Forest. I can't say no to Rosenberg. I haven't heard of the Black Forest. Is that a new UA game?
New UA game hasn't come to Australia yet. Looks like an acid trip, the front cover.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a very, very striking box.
I should have a look.
I want to see what this looks like now. I'm so curious.
Yeah, no, I'm going to look it up as soon as Jules starts reading out.
When you look at it at a distance, it doesn't look anything weird. When you look at it close, you're like, my eye is melting.
Cool.
How good.
V-Skittles on Instagram also mentioned that their actual wish list is longer, but they don't want to scare their non-board gaming family, so they always curate it down to like a couple of games. So this year, the list they gave their family was Living Forest, Potion Explosion, Pixies, Acquire, Let's Go to Japan, Quacks of Quedlinburg, and Sagrada. So excellent games in there. But if that's the pared down list, I'm interested to see what the big list looks like.
How big is your family?
That's right, yeah. And then ashyfeet.com, what a username. My God, that's so good. Top tier. Just said Dead Cells, ! It's a good choice.
Very good. I'll read off the Discord ones. Manny said, I really wish I had one. Even trolling through current sales, nothing's grabbing me. So here's my answer, and something I've only ever asked for the past few years. I don't want a game. I want to game. My Christmas gaming wish is to have 3 weekend-long sessions of gaming in 2025 guilt-free. So that's a weekend away with my mates gaming group around Q1 or 2, PlayCon, and then Q3 and 4. I think that's a great idea, Manny. Guilt-free time to game, very, very high on the wish list. Rich said, I think for a Christmas wish list, I'm still looking for older proven games I know are fun, pretty, and lighter to try and convince my family to play, like Sagrada, maybe Isle of Cats. I really enjoy them and have played them with my friends but don't own them. And then Chris Torkium said, for stocking stuffers, there's new mini unlock decks that you can get for like $15. And the re-implementation of Witness has 3 boxes out, I believe, which is a fantastic game.
I am so salty about the re-implementation of Witness. It has been a grail game of mine for so long, and so I'm so excited that it's getting re-implemented. However, the original version had 50 cases in the one box.
Whoa!
Which is one game, 50 cases, and they were janky as heck. It was kind of like, Betrayal at House on the Hill, where there's a whole mess of them, but are they all that good? Who knows?
Yeah.
But in the new re-implementations, I think there's only 9 in a box.
Okay.
And it feels like a bit of a rort. But have you guys heard of or played Witness?
I've heard of it, but I haven't played it.
No, I haven't heard anything about it at all.
It's a game where you're trying to solve a crime or a scenario, but it's a game of broken telephone and you all have part of the information. So you're trying to pass whisper and pass it along to people in the circle, but not only try and hear what they're saying accurately, but also remember and hold onto that information to then pass it accurately to the next, all while trying to piece together those parts of the information to solve, say, a crime.
That's
And it
so
simulates,
good.
being unreliable witnesses to a particular event. And yeah, it's so awesome. I've wanted this game for forever. And I think Sarah actually owns the original one
Of course she
with
does.
the 50. Of course she does. But yeah, so
Very cool.
Yeah, I just looked at the box art. I was like, yes, I know this game. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So good.
yeah.
All right. Well, with all those answers, we're going to move on to our new question of the pod, and I quite like this one. Because I've got an answer.
Same.
So the new question of the pod is: what game are you dying to get off your shelf of shame, and how will you get it played? Okay, the second part I'm not sure of, but the game I really want to get off the shelf and played is Ironwood. I backed a copy of
Interesting.
Ironwood, which is Mind Clash. It was a 2-player head-to-head game, asymmetric. It just seemed like a lot of fun, and Mind Clash have not really led me astray with any of the titles I've tried. It just looks really cool. The natives have all wooden pieces, and the invaders, the industry people, are all metal components. They went full to the max with sort of how they could thematically make the game. And yeah, I've just not had a chance to bring it out to the table. I might have to go around to Mitch's house and go, hey, you and me, Ironwood right now. So I really do want to play that and get that off the shelf. What about you, Joe?
I have a couple. Dead Cells is like burning a hole in my board game bag. So keen to play. I love the video game so much. It's still in shrink.
Oh, wow.
I bought it. Yeah, I bought it off you at
PAX.
PAX. I just haven't. It's just life's been crazy. So I'm going to take it along to the next board gaming meetup I go to, I think, and just get it played because I really, really want to give it a go.
Very good.
And hopefully that'll inspire me to kind of find a group to do a campaign, like the campaign of it with, potentially. But the game that I'm really most keen to play is actually Unconscious Mind. So I backed Unconscious Mind, and Dana spoke about it briefly on one of the previous pods, and it's such a game that is right up my alley, and I love the theme of it being related to psychotherapy and delving into the mind. It's all up in shrink on a table upstairs, and I think about it almost every day. I'm like, how am I going to play this game?
I do have things sitting on my shelf of shame. Some that I just don't want to play because I look at it and I go, just the effort. There's a reason it sat on my shelf of shame for so long. Maybe those I'll just toss. But one game that I'm really excited to try is an expansion to a Japanese game called Nekumi Onsen Hanjuki, which is a little worker placement tile laying game about building a ryokan, a kind of a Japanese hot spring inn. And I got an expansion which just adds more tiles and more goodness to that experience. And there's something so delightful about making a ryokan and putting little ponds and little saunas. And yeah, so really want to get that expansion to the table.
Very good. So yeah, we're keen to hear what you, the community, have to say. Again, the question is, what game are you dying to get off your shelf of shame, and how will you get it played? I don't think... Oh, Joe did answer the question. I didn't. Well, I sort of did. If Mitch is obliging, then I'll get it done. But we're keen to hear those answers. You'll be able to see the question in Discord, on Facebook, Instagram, and X as well. So head over there to share your thoughts on what you want to get played. All right, before we go to the end of the show, just want to give a bit of a plug. So we really, really appreciate everyone that listens to the show. We're very, very grateful for the support. There's lots of ways you can do that. Of course, one of the major ways is going to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue and signing up to donate, and you get access to podcasts. There will be 12 pods of Christmas coming up this month. So get excited for that if you're on Patreon. And if you're not yet, maybe it's something you want to do. We talk about all kinds of things on those podcasts, not just board games. They're lots of fun, nice casual chats. So plenty to look forward to there. If you can't donate, that's totally fine. Tell your mates about the show, or go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating. You can do the same thing on Spotify as well, or just get involved in the community by joining Facebook, following us on X, Instagram, or YouTube, and of course, joining the Discord community where there's always conversations going on, games being played online, lots of ways to get involved. All the links to that are in the show notes. And with that, we'll move on to the last segment, which is Fired Up. All right, time to finish on the high. I'm going to start us off because, well, I already sort of talked about what I was excited about. Kingdom Death had the Black Friday sale, which for those that actually don't know, and a lot of people, including myself, have talked about Kingdom Death. Black Friday, if there's ever a day to get on and get off the fence, that's the day, because they literally make all the core game stuff 50% off every year. So it's a really expensive endeavor. Even at 50% off, it's a lot of cash to put up, but it's actually not too crazy even now with the amount of Kickstarters that just get bigger and bigger. So if I don't think by the time this is out, the sale will still be going, but maybe next year if that's something you want to do. But there's usually secondhand copies kicking around. But what I'm excited about more specifically is one of the new things that they released was the 15th anniversary edition Survivors. So the game has actually been around 15 years now since its very first Kickstarter, which is crazy to think about how long that game has been running in terms of the content produced, and it just keeps going. It has many more years of content in the future that you can order at the moment as well, if you have a spare $1,000 US. But those models just look so amazing, and I'm so excited to paint them up. So that's what I bought on the sale. So very excited to paint up those 15th anniversary Survivor models.
Awesome.
I'm excited to see your pictures of those painted up models.
I agree.
That's
how I enjoy Kingdom Death Monsters, by seeing your painted miniatures.
That's how I engage in painting.
I can't promise when they'll be painted. I definitely have a problem right now. I have been buying lots of miniatures, like bus miniatures and other display pieces, that the amount of projects I have is starting to rack up, and it's a real problem. I've got so much. Look, I'm going to look forward to all of that in the future, and I have a lot of Kingdom Death to paint. It will probably take me a lifetime, but hey, it's something I enjoy doing. I just need to slow down on the miniature purchases because it's not keeping up with my painting speed.
I think also because those KDM minis are so kind of bombastic and large.
Yes.
It feels like they really do need the TLC.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right, Joe, what's got you fired up?
Yeah, you've already kind of hit it. The World Order Kickstarter is out.
Mhm.
I loved Hegemony
Me too.
so much. Really loved it. I thought it did such a good job of simulating how the different classes in society interact with each other. And as a nerd, I just really enjoyed that. So this is the second follow-up game from Hegemonic Project Games. It's called World Order. So where in the first game, they simulated class interactions. This is more about world
Geopolitics.
Geopolitics.
Yeah.
So world superpowers and how they interact. And the kind of thrust of the game is the US is kind of declining as a superpower. Maybe.
How do you feel the vacuum?
Yeah. How do you feel the vacuum? And so you play as the US, China, Russia, and the European Union, I think. So from the marketing, it sounds like they've made it a bit less difficult to teach and learn. I wonder if that means the asymmetry's been dialed back because there's less to teach as a result. But I haven't looked that closely to see how I think it's still asymmetric in terms of the different factions, different things that they do. But I wonder how much of that has been dialed back. And so, just so keen to get my money taken so that I can get this game in a couple of years.
Very cool.
How good.
And Lauren?
I'm not going to mention any pending Kickstarters because I've got so many that are due to arrive around this period. And I feel like all of these projects have the kind of treat them mean to keep them keen mentality. I feel like I've been dragged along. So I'm not going to mention those because who knows if they'll be here before Christmas or even Chinese New Year. What I am really excited about is this is the first year that I'm doing one of the Exit Advent calendars. I've never done them before.
Very cool.
And I didn't buy it myself. My brother and sister-in-law caught up with them the other day, and he just brought it and bought it for us. And he said, we've got one too. We'll do it together, and we'll just, message at the end of each night and say how we did. So I'm very excited. Actually, once I pop off the record, I'm going to go do the first night.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just really jazzed for that. I'm not going to feel like you and your mates, Joe. I'm going to feel really dumb not getting this at all, but I'm just excited to be humbled. And I've also got my Lego advent calendar, so very stoked for that one too. It's just my two little, be really good.
Very cool. All right. Well, with all that fired upness, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Joe.
Thanks so much, Jules. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now. Play more games.
Bye.
Bye.